ESPN dropped the details of the notice of allegations draft from the NCAA as it pertains to Michigan. Some things sound a little bit more serious. There's been one particular newish revelation. Another kind of new, I don't want to say it's a new revelation. It's something that we haven't talked about, but it is something that has been known. And the rest, we're going to delve into it. Why some of it's not quite as serious as it might be presented, as well as why some of it is. Let's talk about it on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Sunday. We did not expect to be doing this. Just got back home from Ann Arbor because of a press conference, and on the way home, ESPN drops. It's not a bombshell. It's going to come across as a bombshell, but some details from the notice of allegations draft. Now that we have clarity, the difference between the actual notice of allegations and the draft. And let's get to exactly, by the way, I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. Let's get right to the text here. We'll read and react, and we'll share kind of the what we knew, what we didn't know, all that kind of stuff. So, new Michigan head coach Sherrone Moore is one of 7 members of the 2023 football program accused of violating NCAA rules in a draft of the NCAA's notice of allegations obtained by ESPN. The draft, which could be subject to change, states Moore could face a show cause penalty and possibly suspension for allegedly deleting a thread of 52 text messages with former Michigan staffer Connor Stalions in October 2023 on the same day that the media reports revealed Stalions was leading an effort to capture the play calling signals of future opponents. The draft states that the texts were later recovered via device imaging, and Moore subsequently produced them to enforcement staff. Moore is accused of committing a level 2 violation according to the draft. Okay, that's that. So Chris Ballas had originally reported that someone had deleted text messages. My educated guess was that it was Chris Partridge. It was not. It was Sherrone Moore. It seems like it was a knee-jerk thing. It's kind of ridiculous if that's actually anything, right? Like, they have the text. He produced the texts. But because he deleted them at the time, it's a penalty. It's a level 2 penalty. I don't know how a level 2 comes with a show cause or even a suspension. That's just generally not how those things correlate. Those are tend to be level 1s. It always feels like a bad look, but there's been certainly times where I've gotten in an argument with somebody and I've deleted the thread of, it's really easy. It's not like you're going through and parsing. You can just delete. But again, Sherrone did not have anything to do with the buck still stops with Connor Stalions when it comes to his scheme. That hasn't changed, but they're angry that Sherrone deleted the text. Okay. Between him and Connor, any text between him and Connor, the moment that it was like, oh, this looks like he's up to something. Okay. So that's new. That's not something that I knew very specifically of. Again, that's because of who I've gotten my intel from. I would not have known that. But it feels like it says that in the NOA draft that it could come with it says right here, the draft states Moore could face a show cause penalty and possibly a suspension. That just seems very much like, okay, it's a level 2 and he still produced the text. He just deleted them the day of. The draft states the texts were later recovered via device imaging. That's what you give your phone and they go through and they take every single thing that is on your phone. Everything that's been on your phone, anything that they can find that's been deleted and everything. This is like the damage of the NCAA. This is me kind of speaking outside of the college football of it all. Like, maybe this is very libertarian of me, but even the government shouldn't be doing this, let alone a organization that governs or oversees the college athletics. Okay. It wasn't right that he deleted them, but again, I could see how he would make a knee-jerk thing, just because it's like, oh, I don't want to be associated with this dude. I don't believe, and from what I'd kind of had gathered from, I can't even remember if it was a source or where it was from. There was nothing in the text that were particularly implicating him with anything. They were innocuous from what I don't even remember. I think that might have been a Chris Ballas thing. And yet he's going to be punished for it because he deleted them and then still produced them. Because again, looking at this right here, that the texts were later recovered via device imaging and more subsequently produced them to enforcement staff. So I guess that's something. It just seems really weird to me. It's like it feels like they're trying to hammer them on something. The next part that we will get to that has a bunch of typical Connor Stalions stuff here. I want to get to some of the Stalions stuff in segment 2, but they do have a part here, and see, I'm kind of missing it. Where is it here? Oh, it's highlighted so I can see it. Former Michigan staff members Jim Harbaugh, Chris Partridge, Denard Robinson, and Stalions are also accused of committing level 1 violations, the most serious category in the NCAA's enforcement process. The school also faces a level 1 violation charge according to the draft due to its pattern of noncompliance within the football program and institutional efforts to hinder or thwart the NCAA's investigation. Former coaches Jesse Minter and Steve Clinkscale are also accused of recruiting violations unrelated to Stalions in the draft. So we know about Partridge. Obviously, he got fired. I don't know anything about Denard Robinson. I'm curious to see, because when it just says when they're committed level 1 violations, I need to see more about what this is. It says he's accused of not cooperating because he denied the NCAA's request to view relevant messages and phone records from his personal cell phone. The draft says Harbaugh could face a show cause. As far as the others, Partridge, a former defensive assistant who was fired by Michigan in November, is accused of pressuring a player to lie or mislead NCAA investigators in an effort to protect the coaching staff during the probe. He is also accused, and we've alluded to this, several level 2 rule violations that are not associated with the Stalions case. Again, some of these things like Michigan has evidence of, and the NCAA has just decided like that. I'll tell you one of them. One of them is that they worked out a player, a recruit who had committed to Michigan and ended up going elsewhere at a camp where the player was allowed to have gotten worked out because he was a paid participant of the camp. But for some reason, they're counting this. I don't understand this. They continue. Partridge, Clinkscale. That's just one example, by the way. Partridge, Clinkscale, and Robinson are all accused of providing impermissible benefits to recruits in 2023, including paying for a recruit's meal and providing recruits with team gear. Clinkscale is also accused of helping a recruit get verified on Instagram for writing a $100 check to a golf charity outing that was run by a recruit's father. Partridge and former defensive coordinator Jesse Minter are accused of level 2 violations for sending text messages to a recruit who was a high school sophomore. Damning stuff. I mean, might as well burn the program down. Let's continue on. We're up against it. So we will continue to get into all of this. And then at the end is probably about where I will give my thoughts. I'm going to try to sprinkle them in here and there. But we will get to that here in just a moment. Before we do, passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. This isn't how I expected to spend my Sunday 2 days ago. like I said, coming back from a press conference, I expected to go to church and be in a state of praise and worship, not to be even going to a press conference, let alone having all of this stuff thrown at us. Again, not much of this is new. The only things that are kind of new in some ways is like there are a couple tidbits in the recruiting part that I didn't necessarily know about when it came to the actual details. But let's get into some of the Connor Stalions stuff. Because we did know kind of all these things. I think the other surprise to me, it's not necessarily a surprise, right? This is what the Buckeye wish list is, that it would be level 1 due to perpetual failure or whatever they call it. So here's one of the Stalions things, and we'll get to the second part that's completely brand new. The NCAA's draft said Stalions failed to cooperate with its investigation. Again, the NCAA didn't reach out to Connor Stalions until April. And the failure to investigate, to my knowledge, is that he did not give them his personal cell phone, email accounts going back to 2010, well before he was involved in Michigan, and bank records, and bank accounts, all that stuff. As I said earlier, that's their failed to cooperate. And you can kind of see what cooperation looks like, right? Because they even said, just to corroborate this with Jim Harbaugh, that he failed to cooperate because he didn't want to turn over personal cell phone type stuff. I know that rivals are going to look at that and be like, hey, if you're not guilty, they want everything in your life. They don't just want just give us what's applicable to this. No, they want to be able to comb through things that you're saying to your wife, things that you're saying to your friends, things that you looked at in your browser history. Like, they want to have this plenary power that goes far, far beyond what in a free country, any reasonable human should be able to do. Again, not to get political, but that's kind of where we're at. All right, so the NCAA's draft said Stalions failed to cooperate with its investigation. The draft states that in October 2023, he removed hard drives from Michigan football offices, which, again, to my knowledge, were his hard drives. And also gave a football player a sheet containing play calling signals of a future opponent. That part I was not made aware of. It said Stalions asked the player to bring the sheet to a team intern's house until he could retrieve it later. Stalions also refused to let the school review his phone, according to the draft. That is correct. Same deal. Michigan wanted the same stuff that the NCAA wanted there. Stalions is yet to publicly share many details about his side of the story, but he's expected to be interviewed for an upcoming Netflix documentary about the scheme. Correct, August 27th. Also stay tuned to this show. So that's mostly known. There's just a couple little details there that I was unaware of. Here's the fun part. This is the absolute new. To this, not to you, but to this. This finally, I didn't expect it to come to this, to be honest. The draft also states the NCAA gathered evidence that shows Stalions was on the sideline at Michigan State season opening against Central Michigan in 2023. Stalions was wearing a bench pass, Central Michigan coaching gear, and a disguise. The disguise was he had a goatee and was wearing sunglasses, according to the draft, which states that Stalions' conduct seriously undermined or threatened the integrity of the NCAA collegiate model. The draft does not say how Stalions obtained a bench pass for the Chippewa sideline. That was the part that I'm surprised that this is the first time that we've heard that the NCAA actually has that. Now, I remember it was like November. Maybe it was still October that I was told the NCAA knows that Connor Stalions was on the sidelines before any of you even knew. Right? Like I rewatched that game to see Connor Stalions on the sidelines. But this is the first time that the NCAA says that they know. We haven't talked about it much because if the NCAA doesn't say it knows, then it doesn't know. Here's the one thing that I can say about this. Connor Stalions was not there to gather information for Michigan. You can take that however you want. He was not there to gather intel for the University of Michigan. Okay? I know that there's people in East Lansing that are screaming at that paragraph, but it didn't have anything to do with your rival, even though it kind of did, but it kind of didn't. We'll get to that in the coming weeks, okay? You're going to have to be patient with some of this stuff. So, where does this have everything stand? Well, some of it I feel is more serious sounding, but when has it not been serious sounding, especially coming from the NCAA or ESPN? Again, this is draft. This is not actual notice of allegations. Michigan and everyone involved will have an opportunity to respond, right? Everyone will have an opportunity to respond. So when it comes to some of the recruiting violations that aren't actual violations, there will be an ability to be like, here's your rule, here's what it is, right? Here's what actually happened, and they'll be able to do whatever. I think that the most troubling thing out of all of this, out of everything, like, is there anything I'm troubled by? There is, and unfortunately, it is the thing that is the Buckeye fever dream to some degree. And that's one of two things. And it's that let me see if I can find it quickly here. It's the school also faces a level 1 violation charge due to its pattern of noncompliance within the football program. Again, I want to remind you what noncompliance means here. Not cooperating with an investigation. It means not turning over every single part of your life. These people were willing to answer NCAA's questions. Jim Harbaugh sat down with NCAA investigators. Connor Stalions sat down with NCAA investigators who didn't reach out to him until April, and then he appeared with them. What evidence do I have of that? Well, you're going to see that at some point, okay? I promise you that. Yet, they're facing some of these charges because they aren't willing to turn over everything. This is something we talked about last week, and it's, to me, it's just an overstep, a giant overreach in so many ways. It is troubling, though, with the NCAA being judge, jury, executioner, pretending that they are operating under the strictures of the Patriot Act as the United States Congress, well, I was going to say congressional Congress, that they, hey, you didn't do every little tiny thing. We're gonna screw you over with this. We'll see what it comes to. The other problem I have is just the Sherrone Moore stuff, because by all accounts he cooperated, unless I'm misunderstanding this. But because he deleted text messages, turned over his phone, and whether it was a delayed gratification for the NCAA or what, he eventually gave them everything that they wanted. And yet it's just, to me, it reeks of an organization that is desperate to look like it's in charge. That's the type of conversation that I was having with some political operatives. You'll hear from them in the coming weeks on this show as well, as we kind of go back through some of what happened in October. They're scheduled to be a guest later this month to kind of discuss where the NCAA is essentially trying to save its dying brand in a lot of ways. And to me, when it's, hey, give us what we want. Okay, here's what we want. Oh, but you didn't initially, but you still gave us what you want. It just is weird. It's bizarre. So what do I think happens from here? Let's get into that here in just a moment, and my final thoughts on all of it. But before we do, listen, it's baseball time. Baseball's happening. If you're into that sort of thing, it can be very exciting, but we're a football show. So we want football, and you miss football, but maybe you pay a little bit of attention to baseball. You can have a little bit of extra fun by going in and dreaming up any kind of bet that you want, whether it's baseball, whether it's football futures, any of that type of stuff on FanDuel. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, let's finish this out. Let's give you my thoughts here. Some of you might notice my tenor sounds different. It's less to do with the allegations, more to being, and I don't normally do Sunday shows, and I am an exhausted person, and I feel blindsided by all of this, and felt the need to get something out as fast as possible for you. I don't think much has changed, to be honest. I think that the threat of level ones has increased. For those who say the hammer's coming down, asterisks, all that stuff, no. People have been pointing to Kentucky and their vacation of games. That has to do with ineligible players, playing ineligible players. The NCAA doesn't like to do, per their own words, things that, also with the bowl ban and all that stuff, they don't like to affect players that had nothing to do with anything. So those are all, to my knowledge, off the table. NCAA could buck its own rules, though. We've seen that happen before. I highly doubt it. I would bet that none of that type of stuff is going to happen. I think that on its face, if you're going into this blind, it feels like, ooh, this looks bad. None of it's different. There's a couple level ones. I would still kind of bet more heavily on there just being fines, potentially a scholarship reduction of some sort. But for the most part, this is information that we knew. There's some details that maybe we didn't know. And I think that some of it is overreach. And I think that there is going to be some pushback, because you also have to keep in mind the timing of this. The NCAA, the draft, as I was told before, now that I again understand the difference between the NOA draft and just the NOA, that was supposed to come about a month ago. Like I told you a couple weeks ago, they also wanted to interview Denard Robinson now that he was separated from the program. That seemed to have pushed some things back. And now we have what we have. All of this comes out sometime in between the announcement of Connor telling his side of the story and the actual ability for people to see his side of the story, in which you're going to, I haven't seen it. I know a bit of what's in it, and some of the things are not going to be making the NCAA look like a particularly with it and together organization. Let me put it that way. So you'll have to wait and see that. But I think that part of this is a PR stunt by the NCAA to kind of be able to control the narrative. And I think it's done a pretty good job of that for the most part. I think that the Sherrone Moore level 2 violation potentially coming with a show cause or a suspension is absurd, especially because he gave them what they wanted. I don't know what the content of the text are per se, but again, I know that no one above Connor Stalions knew what Connor Stalions was doing. For a lot of the haters out there, they tend to forget that that sign stealing is legal. So if it was something like, hey, can you get their signs, or do you have signs that you procured from looking, like, again, like even giving a list of signs for the Connor Stalions thing, giving a list of signs to an intern to hold on to is not anything that's illegal. That sounds sensational, like, oh no, by all accounts, he could sit there and watch TV. He could watch game film, any of that stuff. It's legal to do that. The Central Michigan stuff, again, doesn't have anything to do with the Michigan penalties. That could affect Connor Stalions' penalties, but as far as the Michigan penalties, it has nothing to do with that. Let's see, what else are we not touching on? The former staffers getting hit with level ones feels a bit heavy-handed, but they're former staffers. They're not with the program. So to me, the bigger part is a level 1 being charged against Michigan for essentially being a repeat offender of just general what have you. I mean, this was going on at the same time as their Burgergate, and certainly the NCAA is going to try to twist things the way that they want to. Here's where I will agree, even though I've pushed back a little bit on Chris Ballas, who's, again, one of my best friends, and I hate even doing it. But one of the things that he said about the potential bowl ban is that if that were to happen, Michigan would fight it. You would hope so. They didn't fight with the Chris Partridge of it all. That was another thing I meant to cover. I do believe that there is some level of misunderstanding there, and I thought I knew who it was. Someone was pinpointed to me, but it's turned out it was someone different that also had an axe to grind. So you're taking the word over a jilted player in over anything. But to my knowledge, what Chris Partridge had told those guys was like, don't say anything that you don't know, not to protect the coaching staff. It was don't go out there and start saying things, and that some guys were kind of thought that they knew more than they knew or whatever because they're reading the reports and stuff like that. And again, this is just what was relayed to me back at the time in November last year. And that it wasn't like, hey, keep your mouth shut, don't snitch. It was more of like, hey, you can only say things you know. Don't go out there proffering everything you think you know. And that type of thing. You also have to keep in mind the NCAA wasn't letting kids know that they can have counsel with them. They were just trying to rush them through the process and all of these things. And so a lot of times they were nervous and they were scared and they were just kind of giving out whatever they felt like was going to help or whatever. But then a jilted player made it sound as if Chris Partridge said, don't snitch. That's what I was told. That could not be accurate. That could be accurate. That's just what I was told back in November when all of this went down. All this to say, if Michigan needs to fight back, because I think it's being made a patsy to some degree, there is some evidence of some things that were wrong. I think that some of them were, some of the recruiting stuff, like if they did give out gear and buy dinners and stuff, yeah, that's illegal and they should be punished for it. I feel like all of this is kind of coalescing. As I said 2 months ago, the NCAA was tacking on a bunch of things to make things look absolutely abysmal in Ann Arbor. And to me, it's all a sham. Michigan should be punished accurately for the things that it accurately did wrong. As far as the breaking of bylaw 1161, I still think it's a gray area. I don't think it's as some have said, it's a violation of the spirit of the rule, not the actual rule itself, if you can even say that. And then I think some of these other level ones are just absolutely absurd. Jim Harbaugh didn't want to give out his personal cell phone so you could sit there and look at every single thing he's ever said, because that's what they're requiring, as you can tell from the Sherrone Moore comments there. He's in trouble for deleting text that he eventually produced anyway. This is what you're up against. It's all right there on the page. So, as someone who has relatively libertarian views, that has a severe distrust of authority, that is not my creator, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, I think it's just a lot of overreach to try to be tough. That's what I think. So, that's all I got for today. We'll continue this discussion as things progress. Apparently, we'll probably still on Monday get back to the players and that we talked to today. Assuming we're not going to write a lot of that now, because I feel like it's kind of gotten overridden with the news cycle here. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll be back on Monday. Peace.